What if I told you the number of calories the average person consumes has barely gone up in the last 30 years, but the obesity rate is skyrocketing? From this statistic alone, we can conclude that some metabolic nightmare is occurring somewhere. Something is going on with our metabolisms. What happens is when you eat this. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the differences between the 3 most popular fat loss diets in the world. So by the end of this video, you can decide which diet is best if you want to achieve the body of your dreams. We're going to compare these diets in every aspect, whether they speed up or slow down our metabolisms, what our energy levels are going to be like on each. I mean, seriously, who wants a diet where you just have no energy all the time? As well as how easy each diet is to stick to and whether or not it's sustainable in the long term. And if you stick around to the end, I have a very interesting study to show you which basically summarizes everything I talk about in this video. Now before we get into how each diet will affect your metabolism, let me briefly explain how each diet works. First up, let's look at counting calories. Counting calories is where you count your calories. It's pretty straightforward. Calories are a measurement of energy. Fat is stored energy. So if you burn more energy than you consume, you tap into your own body fat. And if you consume more energy than you burn, this energy is then stored as fat. Now this sounds pretty straightforward, and from a surface level view, counting calories makes perfect sense. However, why is it that every single gym you go into, where all the personal trainers know this stuff, look like they need a personal trainer themselves? There are some serious flaws to counting calories, which I'm going to get into throughout this video. Now the keto diet is a diet where you can consume all foods that are low in carbohydrates. This includes all meats, nuts, low carbohydrate vegetables, you name it. As long as it's low in carbohydrates, it's part of the keto diet. What happens when you're in this low carbohydrate state and you're eating enough fat is your body switches its primary fuel source from carbohydrates to fats, and you get into a state known as ketosis, hence the name keto. And spoiler alert, this right here is a major factor as to why the keto diet is incredibly effective, as I'm going to talk about in this video. And on the carnivore diet, or the proper human diet as it should be called, you can eat any food that comes from an animal. This includes the meat and the dairy. Now this diet is called the proper human diet because it is just that. Every single species has their own species appropriate diet. And in case you're wondering how we know that humans only eat meat, I've made an entire video on this which goes in depth on 31 different reasons as to why we know that humans are a carnivorous species. Alright, so how does each diet affect our metabolism? Now before we begin, let me briefly explain what the word metabolism means. We often hear this word thrown around, but what exactly is a metabolism? Now to really oversimplify it, the definition we're going to go with is how many calories are you burning per day. When you count your calories, you can eat whatever food you want. But the thing is with all of this food, and I use the word food very loosely because I don't even know if you can consider it that half the time. Often these products are just a ton of man-made chemicals thrown together and made to taste nice. But what happens when you consume this stuff is that your metabolism just gets destroyed. What if I told you the number of calories the average person consumes has barely gone up in the last 30 years, but the obesity rate is skyrocketing? From this statistic alone, we can conclude that some metabolic nightmare is occurring somewhere. Something is going on with our metabolisms. What happens is when you eat this poison, it inflames all your cells, and therefore they become damaged and they produce less energy. And because you feel tired all day and don't spend any energy, what happens is your metabolism slows right down. You're burning a lot less calories per day. Every single person that's counted calories at some point in their life knows that after a certain amount of time, you start to feel terrible. Imagine how many extra calories you would have if you had so much energy all day, you spoke with enthusiasm, you sat there and you could barely sit still. In the evening, you had so much energy you decided to go for a walk instead of binge watching the 3rd straight episode of Netflix. This right here would make a massive difference to the amount of calories you're burning per day. In fact, some studies have shown that this can vary between 2,000 calories person to person. So when you go on this count your calories diet and you eat all the ultra processed garbage, your metabolism ends up tanking. Now on a ketogenic diet, your metabolism is going to be better. Now partially this is because when you're in a state of ketosis, it's your body's natural state. It's the state humans have been in for the majority of our existence, as well as the fact that you're no longer eating all this poison, so your cells aren't going to be damaged. But there is still an issue with the keto diet because you're including some sort of plants, and that issue is that plants are trying to kill you. Every single plant, its sole goal is to survive and reproduce, and because plants can't defend themselves through methods such as kicking, running, biting like animals, the only way to do it is through biowarfare. So they end up developing all these defense chemicals like lectins, tannins, hormone disruptors, you name it. Every single plant identified contains thousands of these different compounds. Now if you're sitting there and thinking to yourself, is some random dude on the internet with a terrible haircut and a terrible moustache really telling me that vegetables are harming my metabolism? Yes, indeed I am. I am saying that. I do believe that vegetables are slowing your metabolism down because of the damage they're doing to your cells. If vegetables were so good for us and contained everything we needed and nothing we didn't, Why is it that they taste so bad and they only start to taste alright when we have the acquired taste, which, as I've talked about before, is a survival mechanism because our bodies think that food must be scarce, and if we don't start to like this food, then we won't be able to get sufficient energy in and we'll die. I mean, think about it. Our taste buds can change in the span of 10 minutes. You'll eat something, it'll taste amazing, all of a sudden you get super full, and it gets to a certain point where the food just starts to taste so bad that you literally cannot stomach it anymore. You start to feel sick. It's the exact same food. 10 minutes ago it tasted amazing, and now it tastes horrible. That's how smart our taste buds are. But on the carnivore diet, your cells will function perfectly because you aren't having any of these toxins that are found in plants. In fact, if you're on the carnivore diet and you're watching this video, please go down and comment how the carnivore diet has affected your energy levels. Has it made them better? Has it made them worse? I think as you scroll through the comments, you'll start to see exactly what I'm talking about. Because your energy levels are going to be through the roof, you're just going to burn way more calories, and therefore when it comes to metabolism, the carnivore diet is by far the best. Now we're going to talk about how hungry you need to be on each diet to achieve the body of your dreams. First, let's look at counting calories. When you eat carbohydrates, your body's preferred fuel source is carbohydrates, and when you eat fats, your body starts to run on fats. Now, when you run out of carbohydrates that you've consumed, your body's not very effective at tapping into its own fat. However, when you become fat adapted and your body runs on fats, as soon as you've run out of calories that you've eaten, your body can very easily just tap into its own body fat. This right here is what is referred to as being fat adapted, and it makes a massive difference in terms of how hungry you feel, as well as the fact that carbohydrates affects your hunger signaling, which makes you hungrier and makes you want to eat more. Actually, you know what? I made a video illustration one day that took me way too long to use for only one video, so I'm just going to play that clip now. One of the ways it does this is by messing with the hormone known as leptin. Now, whenever you eat carbohydrates, you get a significant rise in your blood sugar levels. The problem with this is when your blood sugar is elevated, another hormone known as insulin also increases to try and bring your blood sugar back down. And as soon as insulin is released, a hormone known as leptin, which is responsible for telling your body that you're full and it's time to stop eating, is blocked. And so your body's no longer going to get the signal that it's full, and it's going to cause you to overeat. This is why when you have a massive meal and you're completely stuffed, as soon as you have a sugary treat afterwards, you're hungry again. When I was young and stupid, which was obviously a very long time ago, I used to count calories, and all I would do was think about food. I'd be hungry the entire time I was trying to get lean, and it was just a terrible experience. However, on the carnivore diet, because I'm fat adapted, because I'm not having carbohydrates, I literally never have to think about food and I get lean effortlessly. Now you would think, wouldn't keto be better than carnivore when it comes to how hungry you have to be? Because you can just eat massive amounts of these low calorie vegetables. Now the thing about feeling full or being what is known as satiated is that it's an incredibly complex equation, and it's a lot more to do with how many nutrients you're getting from your food than how much total volume you're eating. It really bugs me when I go online and see these recipes made by fitness influencers. These dumb little recipes where they combine 44 different artificial sweeteners and talk about how their 0-calorie jelly will mean you never get hungry again. Do you really think you've found a way to outsmart human biology? Sure, this jelly might make you full for about 10-15 minutes, but as soon as your body realizes that this contains no nutrients, that you've essentially just eaten poison, it's soon going to realize that it actually needs to eat something again. It needs some nutrients so it can function properly. And when I talked about something similar to this in the past, someone commented, well, bodybuilders seem to get in amazing shape. They're the most ripped people on the planet. And yes, you would be completely right in saying that, but you watch any video of a bodybuilder in prep, they feel horrific. You listen to them in interviews talk. You try to get super lean. I've been super lean before counting calories. It is a terrible experience. You know what happens to all of them? They gain all the weight back. Have a look at these bodybuilders during the off season. Most of them get fat. They all talk about how unsustainable it is to stay lean because their diets are full of just so many processed foods. And the thing with vegetables nowadays is that they're just grown in the same soils over and over and over again. Now these soils are so depleted in nutrients that the vegetables themselves contain much less nutrients than they used to. And the problem even then with the nutrients is that they're bound up. We can't absorb them. All the defense chemicals bind to these nutrients, and the human body just does a terrible job at breaking them down. Seriously, look at studies with nutrient absorption in plants versus in a more bioavailable form like meat. Now, obviously, if you eat 10 kilograms of vegetables, it's going to be very hard to be hungry. So for that reason, I guess you could argue that keto may be slightly better than carnivore when it comes to feeling satiated. However, in my opinion, I don't think the tanking of metabolism is worth it. Now, how much energy are we going to have on each? I've already kind of talked about this with the metabolism thing, but let me just quickly reiterate. When you count calories, you're going to feel terrible. You're basically going to have no energy. On a ketogenic diet, you're definitely going to have a lot better energy levels than you would counting calories. And then on carnivore, you're just going to have incredible energy levels. Now, the final thing we're going to talk about is how easy each diet is to stick to and whether or not it's sustainable in the long term. This right here is a very interesting paradox. You would think from a baseline perspective that counting calories would be by far the easiest diet to stick to. When you count your calories, you can eat whatever you like. Now that sounds pretty sustainable. A diet where you can eat whatever food you want, that sounds like something that most people could do in the long term. However, the problem with food nowadays is that it's designed by teams of scientists to make it addictive, to make it so you can't stop eating it. They have no aftertaste, so you're not satisfied and you have to grab another bite. They hit what is known as the bliss point, which is the perfect ratio of fat, sugar, and salt, so your brain gets so much dopamine you can't stop thinking about it. Now, these scientists are incredibly good at their jobs, and it's very hard for most people to moderate the stuff. Everyone knows the saying, eat in moderation, but all you have to do is take a look around at society and you can come to a pretty fair conclusion that most people aren't moderating their food intake. There is a very small percentage of genetic outliers who have very small appetites that can moderate this stuff. However, for the vast majority of people, counting calories is not sustainable, and most people who do it for a long enough time horizon end up gaining weight, and that is just a fact. It's very hard to go against your biology for that long, and even if you do manage to willpower your way through it, which fair play to you, you still are poisoning yourself, so it's not ideal, but fair play for mustering up the willpower. Why on earth would you want to do a diet that just makes you feel terrible? So even though from a surface level perspective it seems sustainable to count calories for a long period of time, for most people it's not, and it's getting harder and harder as they get better and better at making the stuff addictive. Now, what about the carnivore diet? Well, in my most popular video I've ever made, I broke down exactly why you'll never get sick of eating only meat on the carnivore diet. But basically, to reiterate what I said in that video, is that the reason you get sick of a food is because you get a build-up in toxins from eating it over and over again. However, in meat, there is zero toxins, there's zero defense chemicals, so when you eat meat over and over with only salt on it, you never get sick of it. Seriously, for over half a year now, I've eaten basically exclusively meat and eggs, and whenever I get hungry, that's what I want to eat. All the ultra-processed stuff that I used to absolutely love, it repulses me. Now, keto is also definitely sustainable. It can be harder if you're eating those rubbish keto treats, but a ketogenic diet, in my opinion, is very sustainable. A lot of people like to say that being in ketosis long term is harmful. However, that just makes no fundamental sense. As I talked about earlier, for the majority of human existence, we only eat meat. So, in summary, the carnivore diet is just superior in every single way. Followed by keto, and then counting calories, in my opinion, is the worst of the three to lose weight because you'll just start feeling so terrible. Now, like I talked about earlier in the video, I have a study that backs this up. And let me read you a passage from that study. What they did in the study is they got two groups of people. They put one group of people on a high-fat ketogenic diet and the other group on what was called a low-fat diet, but is basically just your standard diet because nowadays most people opt for low-fat things anyway. And this is what they found. Despite significantly greater calorie intake, 1855 versus 1562 calories per day, both between and within group comparison revealed a distinct advantage of a ketogenic diet over a low-fat diet for weight loss/fat loss. Every single person I've ever coached has achieved the body of their dreams on the carnivore diet. However, with counting calories, it's a lot harder for people to see the same results. Believe me when I say that I've tried them both and carnivore is just far superior. If you want to work one-on-one with me to achieve the body of your dreams, click the top link in the description and it will take you to my coaching page. Anyways, that concludes today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my content, consider subscribing. It's completely free. It means you'll see more videos like this. Now, on screen right now, there should be two videos. One of them is the 31 reasons why we know that humans are meant to only eat meat video that I talked about throughout this video. And the other video is where I go in depth as to why you'll never get sick of eating only meat. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time.